Okay, so welcome to Pre-AP Chemistry. This is going to be the first of many videos you're going to be watching from Mr. G. So today we're going to start on our Chapter 1 and 2 packet, kind of the introduction to chemistry and matter and change. This first video is going to go through what chemistry is, the 5 types of chemistry, as well as the scientific method. First off, we're going to start with the scope of chemistry, so what chemistry actually is. Before I begin, actually, I should say that if at any point during this video you need to pause, take a break, you're more than welcome to. Obviously, if you need to pause to write things down, that'd be fantastic. I do go kind of quick, so at certain points, if you need to pause, go ahead and pause the video, jot things down, and then continue. So, chemistry, what chemistry is. So, chemistry is all things on our planet that are composed of matter. You need to know what matter is in order to understand what chemistry is. So matter is defined as anything that has mass and occupies space. And that is what we're going to focus on in the branch of science you're going to be studying this year called chemistry. Chemistry is the study of matter and the changes that it undergoes. The good thing about chemistry is all around you. It's in your everyday basic life. It has many processes, and it's things you do on a daily basis and things you probably don't notice that are chemistry related. So we have 5 different types of chemistry we're going to be talking about this year. The first one is called organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is the study of chemicals containing carbon. Carbon is a very important element on the periodic table, which we'll learn more about here in this semester. And organic chemistry is dedicated just to those chemicals that have carbon in them. We also have inorganic chemistry, which is the opposite of organic chemistry. It's the study of chemicals that contain no carbon. There's probably a 50-50 split. There's just as many organic molecules as there is inorganic molecules. So inorganic chemistry is the study of chemicals that do not contain carbon. The third type of chemistry is called analytical chemistry. Analytical chemistry is the study of the composition of matter. So if we take an object, we're trying to figure out the composition of that substance. So what's in there, what chemicals are in there, what elements are in there. And then the fourth type is physical chemistry. Physical chemistry is the study of rate. Okay, and rate, for those of you who don't know, is essentially a matter of time. It's also the study of mechanisms and energy changes that occur when matter changes. So when we have a lot of reactions, we're going to get a lot of energy changes, a release of energy and absorption of energy, and we'll talk about physical chemistry a lot this year. The fifth and final type of chemistry that we're going to talk about is the study, is biochemistry. Biochemistry is the study of processes that occur in living organisms. Obviously that prefix bio refers to biology, the study of living things and organisms. It's essentially the perfect mixture of biology and chemistry. It's the study of those, that matter inside living organisms. You guys last year learned a lot about proteins, lipids, fats, carbohydrates, all those good things. It's how those molecules function in living organisms. And these are the 5 basic types of chemistry. There's many more, but these are the 5 that we're going to focus on this year. Okay, the next slide is talking about pure and applied chemistry. So there are 2 areas of chemistry, and they may be pure or applied. So pure chemistry is the pursuit of chemical knowledge for its own sake. Okay, and the second type is called applied chemistry. Applied chemistry is chemical research that is directed towards a practical goal or application. So essentially applied chemistry is, there's usually a driving question behind applied chemistry. So we're trying to reach some goal. We're trying to come up with something that serves a certain purpose that we are studying. Pure chemistry is essentially just for the joy of just learning the knowledge behind chemicals. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is something we call scientific inquiry, which leads us into essentially the scientific method. So, scientists throughout history have questioned the world around them and found answers to those questions through a process now called scientific inquiry. So scientific inquiry is just a method in order to understand those questions. So we begin examining the world around us by asking questions. These questions are prompted by observations. An observation is using your senses to detect things about the world. So we make observation in the natural world, and we start to question why things happen the way they do. Once we notice something we don't understand or can't explain, we're going to form what we call a hypothesis. Most of you know what a hypothesis already is, but it's a tentative, testable statement that can be supported by observational evidence. A lot of people use the definition for a hypothesis, an educated guess. It's not really an educated guess. You need to make a tentative, testable statement. So it has to be a statement that you can test in order to come to some conclusion. We're going to use an experiment to test out your hypothesis. So an experiment is a realistic measurement techniques, and they're going to result in some type of observable data. Observable data means that you're going to see something, or you're going to be able to take a mass and it's going to change. It has to be observable data, something you have to see. In an experiment, you have to have an independent variable. Okay, and we'll get into more of the definitions of what an independent variable here is here in a second. Now, when a set of data has been gathered, so once we collect our data, it must be analyzed. Okay, from this analysis, we're going to develop a model. A model is a mathematical, physical, or conceptual representation of an object or event. So we're going to take that hypothesis, we're going to set up an experiment, we're going to collect that data, we're going to take that data, and we're going to develop a model to try to explain the object or event that we observed. Now, there's two types of measurement. The first type of measurement is a quantitative measurement. If you notice in the word quantitative, there's an N. Okay, an N represents that there's going to be some type of numerical value. There's going to be a number value. Okay, for example, this example below here, it says John is 6 foot 10 inches tall. That's an actual value. That's a number. That is a set of quantitative measurements. Okay, we also have a qualitative measurement. A qualitative measurement is just a description. Okay, so for instance, I could take that John is 6 foot 10 inches tall and change it to a qualitative measurement and saying that John is just very tall. There's no number behind that description, so that is what we're going to call a qualitative measurement. Remember, quantitative with an N is a numerical value. Qualitative is just a description. So we're going to be using graphing in science. This is where we're going to talk about our independent and dependent variables. So there's lots of different variables and definitions that go along with an experiment. So a variable is a thing in an experiment that changes or could be changed depending on if it's independent or dependent. A constant is something in an experiment that is kept the same in all trials. So a constant is something that's not going to change in your experiment. So we have two different types of variables. The first one's called an independent variable. An independent variable is something in your experiment that you are going to change on purpose. Okay, it's important to understand that when you graph your variables, the independent variable is going to go on the x-axis. Okay, and remember, the x-axis is the horizontal line on a graph. The second type of variable is the dependent variable. So, with your independent variable, you change that on your own. You're going to change that so that you can try to get some type of reaction. Now, as you get a reaction, that's when you get your dependent variable. That's going to be the response to you changing the independent variable. Okay, so the dependent variable is the variable that's going to respond to you changing the independent variable. Remember, the dependent variable is going to go on the y-axis. Remember, the y-axis is your vertical axis on your graph. Okay, with the scientific inquiry method, you're essentially going to come to two conclusions. Okay, it's usually one or the other. Okay, if you go through the scientific inquiry method, you can develop what we call a theory. A theory is a model that has been tested in a variety of conditions and confirmed many times. Okay, so it's a model that has been tested in a variety of conditions and has been confirmed many times. Two theories that are pretty common that you may have heard of. We have the theory of plate tectonics. Plate tectonics is just how the Earth's crust shifts underneath of us. and you also have the theory of evolution. Both of those theories are models that have been tested in a variety of conditions and been confirmed many times over. The second type of conclusion that you can come to is something we call a scientific law. A scientific law is a concise statement that summarizes the results of many experiments. A lot of scientific laws are defined by mathematical expressions. This little chart in the lower right hand corner here kind of takes you through the scientific inquiry method. Starts with observations. You're going to form a hypothesis. You're going to experiment. And these experiments, meaning your observations, you can come to the two different conclusions. You can either kind of come to the point where you're going to create a theory, or you can create a scientific law. That's it for the first little podcast here. I hope you guys have a great evening. Make sure you fill in your notes on page 1 of your notes packet, and we will see you tomorrow.